Hello, everyone. Cecil Martin here.
Hey, this is Hunter Henry.
What's up, man? This is Max Crosby, part of Raider Nation.
Hey, this is Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman.
Hey, it's Tyler Lockett of the Seattle Seahawks.
Hey, this is Jerry Judy, wide receiver for the Denver Broncos, and you're listening to the Full10Yards NFL Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Full10Yards NFL Podcast. I am your host, Sam Moores, and we're only 5 days away from Christmas. But before we can celebrate that and maybe even watch some football on that day because of the games that we played on Christmas Day, we have a full Week 16 slate to come first. The first game of which, of course, happened last night, and it was a cracker. We'll talk about that later on. Because as promised last week, we've also got to talk about some of the brilliant games last Sunday too. It's one of the best slates I can remember in terms of like big teams playing against each other, which is awesome. And joining me to recap those brilliant Bills, Lions, Eagles games, recap last night's action, and react to some news in the week as well as pick the remaining Week 16 games is a returning guest. It is, of course, Liam Horsley, host of a few podcasts on our network, including the Betting Pod, which was recorded last night. Welcome back, mate. I can't believe it's sort of that time of the year already. It's crazy.
I know. What was it? Week 16, which is a bit mental, to be honest. We'll be rolling into wildcard weekend soon and talking about playoffs. So yeah, it's gone fast. Probably the fastest I think a season's gone for me personally. I don't know whether that's just because of work or whatever, but yeah, it's been a good season, but it's moving by pretty fast. But we have got some good games to chat about, which is good. Yeah,
it's certainly been a hectic one for me. But you know, still managed to fit in the podcast every week. And again, there's been so much because there's been so many surprise stories this season as well. There's always been something to talk about each week, which has been really good. Because I mean, you look at it now. There's so many teams in the playoff picture that weren't there last year. For me personally, it's like one of the biggest turnovers I can remember. You can have like 5-6 teams in the playoffs that weren't there a year ago, which is really nice to see. It's normally a couple. And you know, at the start of the podcast. It'd be wrong not to talk about last week because we had certainly had one really big game. It's one of the most competitive slates that I can remember last week with so many games between teams like in and around those playoff positions. And in that slate, the late slate, we had 2 games between teams with double-digit wins that were played at the same time simultaneously. The biggest of which was, of course, between the Bills and the Lions, who combined for 90 points between them in a score fest. Obviously, Buffalo came away 48-42 winners in that game from Detroit to move to 11-3 and keep pressure on the Chiefs, thanks to another heroic Josh Allen performance. It was a hot start for the Bills, going up 21-7 early in the second quarter, and the Lions could really never really come back from that. They just had to rely and they just had to pass. I mean, Jared Goff threw the ball 59 times in this game. You know, despite how good they were, there was just too big of a hole to come back from. For the Lions, as I mentioned, Goff 5 touchdowns and only 500 yards passing in the loss. It's very rare that happens. And yeah, a great win for the Bills, of course. Allen pretty much secured himself MVP. Showed they can win the big games because in 3 other big games this year, the Houston game, the Baltimore game, and the Rams game, they've fallen up. They've come up short, and especially in the first 2 of those games, they were sort of blown away by the Texans and the Ravens as well. But they've grown as a team and got better since then, rebounding from the Rams lost about 2 weeks ago now. But the story here for me is that the Lions' injuries piling up. It's a shame because they've been like the feel-good story of the league the last couple of seasons. I think everyone's sort of second team to root for, especially in the AFC, for example. Last week they were the unanimous number 1 team in our power rankings. Every single person put them as the number 1 team in the league, but they just keep getting horrible luck. And now I'm starting to worry about them because they added David Montgomery, Ali McNeil, and Carlton Davis to the list of players who are out for the year last week, and that's not good news at all, is it?
No, it just seems like that's been the story of their season, especially on defense, like you mentioned. I'm personally not as bothered about the Montgomery loss for them. I think it'll impact 3rd, 4th downs, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, stuff like that. But it won't kind of hamper the overall offense. But the defense, as you can see, it's just walking wounded at the moment. I think they lost 2 starters, if I'm right, in this game that we're talking about, and they'd already lost 3 starters before that. So, overall, the whole season has been really good, but it seems to have been kind of hampered by injuries now. And I listened to the Athletic Football Show, and I know Mays on there was saying it just seems like it's going to be one step too far with the injuries. It's going to be very hard for them to win But if they don't make the 1 seed, it'll be hard for them to win 4 playoff games with how injured their defense is, which I probably agree with. I think the 1 seed's quite important for them to get a bit more health and get back into, kind of Lions football on defense, because the defense about midway through the season really ticked up and they were a top 10 unit, and now they've just fallen off a cliff a little bbit again. So, yeah, it is a sad story because, like you said, they're probably not my second favorite team, so I've got an affiliation with the Rams, but I think most people that I know love the Lions. And if they're an NFC fan, ironically, they love the Bills. So it feels like this game was 2 teams that the neutrals just seem to love. But yeah, one of them's hampered by injured a lot on defense, and then the other one just had an absolute awful defensive display again in this game. So yeah, not a good weekend if you're like Jeff Reinbold and love defense.
Yeah, I mean, the Lions, I think going into this game this week, they could be about 5 players in the top 10 of their positions, by PFF grading, which is crazy. Like it's very rare that you're missing 5 players in the top 10 of their position. Like that's, but because Frank Ragnar was questionable this week as well. It's like that. It could be the case, and I think going into the week last week they had 13 players on defense on IR. Now, obviously, only 4 or 5 of them are starters, but when you lose 4 and 5 starters and then 8 depth players, then it's like, okay, because guys like Jamal Adams, who was on the street a couple of weeks ago, is now playing significant snaps in that defense. Especially guys on the defensive line as well, because they've got so many players in that defensive line. Yeah, it is a little bit of a concern, but we'll see how they rebound. They normally rebound pretty well under Dan Campbell, and we'll see where the culture can take them in the next couple of weeks, because they've got a few tough games to sort of secure that 1 seed. We'll finish off this game between the Bills. Obviously, they're the only team to beat your Chiefs so far this year. They were number 2 in our power rankings last week, and I mean the defense is. It was 80 points or so in the last couple of games, maybe even 90 points a game they've surrendered. But Josh Allen everything he can to win the team games, and that's why he probably will be the most valuable player this year.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the head coach, obviously a defensive guy, right? So he's probably sat home enjoying these victories, but then been like, I really need to turn this around on defense, because there's been no team in the Super Bowl era that's won the Super Bowl with this level of defense. If you look over the last 6 weeks, it's like 3rd worst in the NFL. There's no team that's ever won the Super Bowl with a bottom 5 defense yet. But you had that Brady team that won all those games that they lost in the AFC title game. Peyton Manning lost in a Super Bowl. So yeah, he'll be desperate to fix the defense. And to be honest, I don't know what. I think teams have just figured them out now a little bit. And I think we could see Sean McDermott get quite aggressive in the playoffs and start blitzing a lot more to try and cause some big plays on defense. Because yeah, at the moment they're just getting killed on long drives, and then the team scores a touchdown. The whole idea of letting teams do long drives is to win in the red zone, and they've just wasted 4, 5, 6 minutes, and they've kicked 3, and you're like, okay, cool, Josh Allen will go score 7, but everyone else is scoring 7 against them. So yeah, he'll be worried about the defense, but yeah, Josh Allen's playing extremely well. The offensive line, top 5 offensive line probably this year in the NFL, and they've kind of gone underrated with how good they've been. And they did this with, I think, Amari Cooper getting 0 yards, which is quite a funny.
And then when you look back at the games earlier in the season that they lost, it was because their offensive line wasn't that great. But look back to the Houston game where the defensive line were killing Allen. Same with the Ravens game as well. They've improved as the season has gone on.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they have, especially a tackle. Right tackle Spencer Brown's been really good when he's got back healthy now. So yeah, overall the offense looks really good. But the defense is a big worry. I probably would have put them number 1 in my power rankings if I'd have been able to do it. But that's just because of Josh Allen. And yeah, they'll need the defense to pick up. They'll win all their 3 last games because they play, Jets twice, or maybe Patriots twice, Jets once, one of the 2.
It's 3 games in the East. Yeah, and they've played Miami twice already. So I think it's Patriots, Jets, Patriots. I think, yeah.
Yeah, so they'll win all those, and those teams won't score many points against them because they're terrible. But then we'll see. That first game of the playoffs, I'll be interested to see how aggressive they go on defense to try and make up for some of this play. But yeah, Josh Allen definitely locked up MVP for sure. And
do you think they can win the Super Bowl with the way it is right now, or do you think they need to improve the defense to do
that? Yeah, they can. If someone else beats the Chiefs, they can. Yeah. If the Ravens beat the Chiefs, they could be the Ravens definitely. With Josh Allen playing like this, I think he's different level. I think I said before, I don't know if it was on this or the betting show. When they lost to the Texans, everyone was talking about Lamar Jackson. I just said, as a Chiefs fan, everyone's way more afraid to play Josh Allen.
No, it was because I was saying that Lamar we're talking about MVP, and you were saying that you'd still give it to Josh Allen, even though Lamar was favored by quite a big margin by then. And now look at it, Josh Allen's now favored by quite a big margin, and Lamar's done nothing wrong. In fact, he's been better than he has the years he's won MVP. It's just that Allen's been that good.
Yeah. So for me, they can win a Super Bowl. I think it'd be very difficult to beat. Just say it was Chiefs, then I don't even think the Lions, because I think they are too banged up. But if it's Chiefs, then Eagles, or do you know what I mean, Chiefs, then Packers, or something like that, I think it could be difficult to go and score 40 points, 38 points in every playoff game. But yeah, for sure, if McDermott sorts that defense out a little bit, Matt Milano gets a bit healthier, there's a chance. But yeah, I think they need to improve a little bit over the next 3 weeks on defense.
Awesome. Obviously, elsewhere, we had the Battle of Pennsylvania, which was won by the Eagles, who shut out the Steelers in the second half to sort of claim that game. This win actually puts the Eagles level on record with the Lions, but the Lions currently hold the tiebreaker on conference wins, so that's how close the one seed is in the NFC. The Eagles were great. They sort of controlled this one from start to finish. Saquon Barkley didn't have that great of a game, but it did shut a lot of people up manhandling the Steelers, because a lot of people are, the Eagles are good, but are they that good? They're two teams, both of them win a lot of the time at the line of scrimmage, whether it's offensive line, defensive line. One had to lose this game, and that was Pittsburgh. They also couldn't cover AJ Brown or Devontae Smith. They're both targeted like 10 times. I think they had like one or two incompletions between them. The Eagles had 401 yards to the Steelers 163, 40 minutes to 20 minutes in time of possession. A really impressive win for the Eagles, who, obviously it was like, who have you beaten that's good? Well, the Steelers have been really good this season, and they absolutely manhandled them, as I said. Yeah,
100%. Yeah, such a weird team, the Eagles, because, you won't find many teams where it seems like a lot of people involved in the organization don't like each other, yet they seem to also be extremely well run at times. So, it's almost exactly like last year, except for rather than kind of start losing, they just carried on winning. Because, there's definitely some issues. Even in this game, there was an issue on the sideline between the head coach and Jalen Carter, I think. So, a very weird team. I can't really get my kind of head around them, but the talent's always been really good. Jalen Carter's playing well. Those 2 picks they got in the first round on defense this year, first 40 picks, are playing really well. Offensive line still looks good. Jason Kelce, obviously a big miss, but Landon Dickinson's only playing better than ever. Mekhi Becton, kind of resurgence for the Eagles. I only thought my co-host on my show is an Eagles fan, so I hear a lot about the Eagles. So I think I've been Eagle-pilled that I already thought they were good. So I picked them to win that enough to keep up with anyone. But I thought they really impressed me. They held the Steelers to 2 drives in the second half, which is unheard of, first time in the NFL. So I think they're a very dominant team. I think there'll be a playoff game where the passing game probably does bite them a little bit. But if their defense can get turnovers and stop the other team scoring, they can still win those type of games. I think that's what they'll rely on, because the passing game is great for 2 drives, terrible for 2 drives. It's the way it's always been with Jalen Hurts. But I think the rest of the team is a lot better than it has been in the past. So, I think they're a really good team. And I think they dominated this game more than the scoreline probably said, to be honest.
Yeah, as I said, double the time possession, almost 3 times the amount of yards than the Steelers had. Yeah, they were absolutely in control. And, I mean, you would say that the Eagles' sort of biggest thing holding them back right now probably would be Jalen Hurts, because he's not having that great of a season. He's had a few great games here and there, but he has been prone to turnovers and everything. So he's that. If Hurts plays well, the Eagles will normally win, and I think that's just what we're looking at as we go into the playoffs. I think. As for the Steelers now, obviously that kind of game is a game where you don't want to be missing George Pickens, and he's out this week as well. I said to James on a podcast last week, I think this is the best Steelers offense we've had since about 2017. It's the best Steelers team we've had since 2017 because they're more complete. But we have a few more big games coming up. Obviously, this Saturday, then Christmas Day as well, and with George Pickens injured and a few other key players injured as well. How do you feel about them going into the next couple of weeks? Because they've been great all year, but sort of massive games coming up.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's almost as simple for me as when George Pickens is back, they'll probably start winning games again, to be honest. I think he's that important, A, because he's really good, and B, fits that quarterback really well. But I also think the drop-off is huge. Like that, the wide receiver room is terrible. Anyone who's got a podcast said they need a better wide receiver too all summer. Didn't do it, but everyone thought it won't really matter because they won't be a very good team. But you're seeing now that the secondary wide receivers are just awful. I think you've got Austin. I think you've got Brent Skoranek. You've got Mike Williams. It's just not a room that is conducive to picking the missing time. But overall, I think they'll win games as soon as he's back, because I do think they are a really good team. Like you said, I think the defense is really good. Offensive line is better than people thought. Run game's good. So I think they will win games as soon as he's back. But until he's back, I would worry if I was a Steelers fan. I don't think, spoiler for the picks, don't think they'll be able to beat the Ravens without him. And then if he's back for the Chiefs game, they'll have a chance. But if he's not, I can't see them winning those 2 games, and then they could probably lose the division. So for me, I think it's just as soon as he's back, they'll start firing again.
Yeah, I wouldn't rule anything out with Mike Tomlin. He's always got something up his sleeve, especially winning a quarterback on Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges over the years. Getting teams into the playoffs, and they're pretty much already secured a playoff berth already. It's just about what seed the Steelers could get, because they've still got a chance of getting like the 1 or 2 seed if they, if the next couple of weeks go their way. It's just very unlikely right now, I would say. Okay, let's move on to Week 16. Before we give our thoughts on that huge Thursday night football game last night, there was some big news in the week, and that is that 2024 8th overall pick Michael Penix Jr. is a new starting quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons, replacing Kirk Cousins, who now moves to the bench. If you would have told me that 2 months ago, I would have thought you're crazy, because Cousins was playing quite good. If you would have told me he was being benched for poor play, I would have thought, nah, you're mental, especially on the back of those 2 Bucs games. He was playing so well. He was putting his team on the back, winning games. He was winning games in prime time. He was, again, he was leading the league in game-winning drives. I think he had 3 or 4 this season. And then sort of like 6 weeks ago, he just hit a wall. That they went into the bye week off the back of a couple of bad games. He couldn't really fix anything off the bye week. He went on a no touchdowns to 9 interceptions run before throwing a touchdown pass in their win against the Raiders on Monday Night Football. And now he heads back to Washington in the game that was billed as the Kirk Cousins revenge game, going back to Washington. Well, now he's on the sideline on that game rather than on the field, and Atlanta are now stuck with his $40 million cap hit next season as well. I mean, judging by the last couple of weeks, it's not really a surprise, this news, but I mean, like, what a fall from grace in the same season is it? It's just crazy.
Yes, I don't think it's a surprise really, but it's a surprise when you think about that organization, how much money they spent on him, and the head coach hasn't had a great year, the head coach, and he's very conservative. One of the reasons why he hasn't had a great year. So for him to drop, Kirk Cousins and play Michael Penix is a surprise to me, just because they are quite a conservative group. But when you look at the stats and when you watch the game, it's not a surprise. But when you just think about the Falcons, how long they've waited for a quarterback since that Matt Ryan year, kind of Raheem Morris as a head coach, his approach, I was a little bit surprised. But yeah, the play definitely deserves it. He's always been a player that he has that game where he has those 2 terrible picks. He has a game every year, but most games the issue is he's not aggressive enough, and he'll get 280 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he'll throw 6 yards on 3rd and 10 3 or 4 times, and that's why people don't like him. But this year he's just thrown balls to other teams all the time. The number of dropped picks he had in those games as well. I think he had 3 drop picks across 2 of those games as well, that he already had like 4 picks combined. So, he's just not playing well. There's that stat going around that he hasn't thrown a ball past 35 miles an hour, which, like, if you look at the division, Baker Mayfield throws every ball faster than 35 miles an hour. I think age and injuries have definitely caught up with him. It started a few weeks ago with his mobility, started getting hit a bit more. Then as soon as he started getting hit, the arm's fallen off, and unfortunately, he's thrown picks because he doesn't want to get hit and he knows he's going to get hit. So, it could be it for him. He's got no trade clause. If I was them, I'd be trying to, find a team that wants him, work with him to get the trade. But he's also a very smart businessman, so he'll make whatever decision makes him the most money, I'm sure.
Yeah, and it's a crazy one, because I think a big factor is the fact that the Falcons now have like a sort of 20% chance, maybe 30% chance of making the playoffs because of the emergence of the Bucs, and obviously this losing run they've gone on. Because he had them in playoff position. I think they were minus 1,000 to win the division. I think NBC showed that stat last week. They were minus 1,000 to win the division 4 weeks ago, and they went from that to only a 30% chance. That's crazy. They were pretty much guaranteed to do it. That just shows how big of a fall off it's been. Sort of before we go into the game last night, we talked about Michael Penix a little bit. How do you sort of expect him to look going into the next couple of weeks? Because I mean, I watched him a couple of times in pre-season, and I was, especially for a guy coming off an injury, I thought, I thought he looked better than I thought he would. Obviously, an older quarterback, a more experienced one, but he's had a ton of injuries, so he's not exactly had a ton of snaps that you'd expect at the age of 24. But no, yes, an interesting prospect, isn't he?
Yeah, they have picked the most injured and injury-prone young quarterback to follow up the very injured old quarterback. But I like Michael Penix. Liked him in college. The Washington team that he played in was really, really fun. He's basically opposite to Kirk Cousins in the fact, obviously, he's left-handed, which instantly gives you an opposite effect. But he's got a very, very strong arm. There won't be many people in the NFC that's got a stronger arm than him. He isn't as mobile as you'd like from a 24-year-old because of the injuries, but he'll still move around way more than most quarterbacks. A couple of years ago, he was really mobile. I'd like to see him kind of get back to that if he has, next season, if he comes back and he's fully healthy, because he can move around a lot. He's kind of like, speaking of the game we're talking about a bit, when you see Bo Nix scrambling in those first 6, 7, 8 weeks of the season, he's a little bit like that. To be honest, he's just a bigger guy, so he does it not quite as fast. But he's a really good player, big, strong arm. He's better down the field. The intermediate pass game that's really good, or was really good before the last 4 weeks with the Falcons, will kind of drop off a little bit. But I'd expect to see a bigger kind of down the field, average depth of target will go up. He's a very aggressive quarterback. So, I really liked him. I liked him more than Nix. Nix has been good this season. So I think he'll develop well. He's got the players around him to do it. I just hope he doesn't kind of have a disaster start in these few games, because you want next season for him to come in with confidence. So I think they need to be careful of how they use him and make sure they protect him a little bit, because Kirk was getting hit a lot. But we spoke about it in the offseason. I do really like him. I think he's got a strong arm and he could be a good player in this league.
I mean, they've still got a chance of getting into the playoffs because the Falcons got one of the easiest schedules in the league coming up as well. So for a rookie quarterback, that's always nice when you've not got a tough defense to go up against. So that will, hopefully he comes in and hits the ground running straight away. Okay, we're going to Thursday Night Football now, where, as I mentioned earlier, we saw a cracker of a game last night between the Chargers and the Broncos. Both teams came into the game in playoff position. The Broncos at 9-5, the Chargers at 8-6. But both of them are pretty much in. They sort of need a collapse, losing two of their sort of 3 or 4 games left to drop out due to a very poor AFC, but below them. And it was the Chargers who came away victorious. So I think they probably needed the game the most, because they were still vulnerable to if they lost, it'd only be a game ahead of the likes of the Colts and the Dolphins and the Bengals if those 3 teams won this week. But it doesn't matter, because they came from behind to win this game, and they jumped ahead of the division rivals, not only in the wildcard standings but also in the division race as well, because they've completed a sweep over over the Broncos this season. The Broncos got ahead early, leading 21-10 with just a few minutes left in the first half. The Chargers were starting to put together a nice drive to trim the deficit, but with under a minute remaining, that drive was ended by a Chris Abrams-Strain interception of Justin Herbert near the goal line. He underthrew Josh Palmer a little bit, who was in the end zone, 2 defenders in front of Palmer, and the Broncos managed to pick him off. Getting the ball back to Denver with just 40 seconds remaining in the half, but obviously are backed up by the goal line. The Broncos forced the Chargers to a punt with just 7 seconds left. And they actually managed to turn that punt into a scoring drive, because a Bronco was penalised for a fair catch interference on the punt. It gave the Chargers extra yardage and an untimed down, because the clock had hit 0 seconds. To which Jim Harbaugh he opted to go for a very rare free kick field goal, so no special teams rush trying to affect the kicker, and he became the first man to make a field goal unchallenged by the opponent since 1976 to close out the half, which is just crazy. And it completely changed the momentum of the game as well. It was 21-13 at the half, and the Chargers got going from there. With just a few minutes to go in the fourth, they were up 2 scores after a big Gus Edwards run set up a Haskins touchdown to open up a 34-24 lead. Will Lutz then reduced that to a touchdown lead by kicking a 55-yard field goal with just a minute remaining. But the Broncos were out of timeouts, so they had to go for an onside kick. The Chargers recovered the onside kick to score the victory, coming from 24-10 down to win 34-27. And it was some performance from them in the second half. They were capitalising on Denver's turnovers and penalties in that second half. And there was towards the end of the first half as well. And that is what Jim Harbaugh was brought in to do, to win those games for the Chargers, because they didn't win that game previously. I don't think they win this game a year ago.
Yeah, I agree. And I think as well, there's a lot of people talking about how they bounced back from maybe the Chiefs lost, and then I think they lost another game in that Bucks game, and they didn't, and they kind of got embarrassed by the Bucks, and that isn't Jim Harbaugh. So it was quite cool, especially if you're a Chargers fan, to one of my good friends is a Chargers fan, to see them bounce back in this game. And this was a very Jim Harbaugh-esque performance. They ran the ball not too efficiently, but they ran the ball well when they needed to run it. Good in the red zone, good on special teams. Had that funny free kick, which is the first time in my life I've ever seen that, which I thought was quite cool when I woke up and saw that this morning. But yeah, you're right. This is what he was here to do, kind of keep them organised. Division game as well. It's similar to when he was at Michigan, big games against conference rivals. Michigan often won, even the year they weren't that good. And then this year, he did the same with the Chargers. So yeah, I think this was a good performance. I think Herbert had two not great throws. You mentioned one of them with that underthrow, but I felt like he played well in the second half as well to keep them going. And both their tackles are extremely good. So yeah, very Jim Harbaugh-esque performance. But it probably was more of a game that the Broncos lost, I would say. I think if you're a Broncos fan, you're pretty frustrated by this because you've dropped now to the 7th seed, which you don't want. Because if it's the Chiefs, whatever, they'll say, turn around, yeah, we can beat the Chiefs. But if it's the Bills, you don't want to be going to Josh Allen on the road, round 1 in the playoffs. That is not what you want. You'd much rather try and become... If they won that game, they would have been the 5 seed going into if the Ravens lost this weekend. And yeah, I just think Texans on the road versus Josh Allen and the Bills on the road is a different story. So I think if you're a Broncos fan, you'll be pretty frustrated today.
Yeah, I mean, Charlie was when he texted me this morning when I woke up. Our group chat was just it was popping off. It makes their game, well, both of them playing next Saturday. It makes those games interesting as well because they play teams that are in and around them. Especially like the Bengals. I mean, the Bengals are still alive somehow. That they're not going to win out. I don't feel like, and neither. I feel like these 7 teams in the AFC will be the 7 teams in the AFC, but there are some teams that were kept alive by every team having the same record. Both those teams having the same record, and obviously the Ravens having, if they lose, will have the same record as well. But I think these 2 teams are going to be playoff teams. I think of the 2, I think the Broncos are probably the team I could feel like because they've got. I feel like they've got the better receiving weapons. I feel like they're the team that I worried about most, but the Chargers know how to win games more. And it was a good game for the Chargers last night as well because their thing this year has been, who the hell have you beaten? Because they've had a really, really easy schedule. They've not played many teams against teams winning games against teams winning records. And when they have, they've lost. We saw that the Bucks game. The Bengals game was a weird one because neither team really wanted to win that game. And in the end, the run game won it for the Chargers at the end of the game, that big J.K. Dobbins run. And it was a similar one in this one as well. That big Gus Edwards run set up the Haskins touchdown. And it was 2 big runs in a couple of plays. And yeah, that was the difference, really. I think it's just like, I do worry about Herbert in the big moments. I've said it a lot of times. He's only had a couple game-winning drives the last 3-4 years, I think, compared to his first year where he was doing it all the time and he was just putting team in his back and everything. But when you coach like this, when you don't need that if you can rely on multiple aspects, especially with the receiving weapons he has as well. I think it's been a very, very good year for the Chargers offense compared. I mean, obviously the line's great and that's what you want. But with when you're having to rely on people like Will Disley and Stone Smart to get big yardage, it's a really impressive way that Greg Roman has done with that offense. And if you're a Chargers fan, you've got certainly loads of hope for the future, as the Broncos as well, to be fair, because again they're a very well coached team other than last night. But both teams are doing great stuff, and certainly got a future ahead of them with their 2 Oregon quarterbacks. Anything more you want to say about this game before we get into the picks?
No, I'd just be worried if I was a team that played the Chargers in the first round of the playoffs.
Really? Do you think so?
I think so, yeah. I think that there'll be a hard out with how well they're coached. 2 really good tackles. They're going to run the ball well.
If they can get a pass rush, I think that's been the issue, isn't it? They've been great in coverage. It's been the pass rush is, obviously Joey Bosa's not been a great season. They really couldn't put any pressure on Baker Mayfield the week before. If they can get a pass rush, then I can agree. But if you can't I can't see them beating the Chiefs without a pass rush, for example. But if they can, because I just feel like they're going to find a way to beat them. But
you can get a pass rush if you were the defensive end against our left tackle. So I wouldn't worry about that. Yeah, I just think I do agree they're both well coached, but I feel like Jim's got a playoff win in him in this season with Justin Herbert, whereas I think Bo Nix playing really well, but you could see last night there was those rookie moments that you're not going to get, I don't think, from a top 5 or top 10 quarterback, however you rank him. But 3 AFC West in the playoffs team. I wouldn't have believed that if you'd have told me that.
Well, I had these two teams getting, in our predictions we did at the start of the season, I had these two teams getting 10 wins between them, and they've both got 9 now. So how
going to get 10 each.
Yeah, exactly. So how wrong I was, right? How wrong I was. Obviously, they benefited from quite an easy schedule the West has had this year compared to other divisions, but they've certainly earned their chance to be in the playoffs because both defenses have been really good, both top 5 defenses this season, and the offenses have the one team's been running the football better than the other, but the offenses are well coached. Obviously, 2 offensive guys, and they've done. They've done everything they can to back off their defense and off the back of their defense and really pushed for playoff positions. And I think both seem to be really fun to watch, and could cause problems in the playoffs for teams like the Bills or the Ravens, for example, who have very, very leaky defenses. If they can score against them and prevent those offenses, then certainly they could have an opportunity. Okay, on to the Week 16 picks. We've got a massive slate this week, of course. 15 games still to be played. We've got games on Saturday for the first time in a year. For the next couple of weeks, we've got games on Saturday, which unfortunately kind of clash with the college football playoff first round, which is really annoying because you'd like to watch the new expanded 12-team playoff. You'd like to watch those games as well, but they are played at the same time as the 2 Saturday games. But I think the NFL has probably done that on purpose, but these 2 games are brilliant. Again, two games with teams with winning records. To start the first one, the Texans going to Arrowhead to play the Chiefs. They were actually favored by 2.5 points going into this game on Tuesday, but because Patrick Mahomes has been announced as a starter for the game, the Chiefs are now 3.5 point favourites. So it's completely flipped. Of the Patrick Mahomes after his ankle injury at the weekend was confirmed to be starting yesterday. As always, we're competing with our audience in our sleeper pick'ems pool, which sees the spread locked on Tuesday. So for this round of picks, the Texans are favored by 2.5, which makes the sort of the pick interesting. I'm going with the Chiefs within 2, probably because they're underdogs at Arrowhead, as we said in this pick'em, and the Texans aren't that great, if I'm being honest. Like they're there. You just need them. Yeah. Again, if it wasn't for the Dolphins starting the 4th and 5th offensive tackles, I think the Dolphins could probably win that game. But unfortunately, the defensive line just completely dominated. Jackson Carman and Liam Eichenberg, again, 2 players that don't belong in the starting offensive line, let alone, it's just crazy. But they're not that great. They can be got at. And I do worry about the Chiefs' offensive line against the Houston pass rush. I think the game will be close because, again, as you mentioned, the Chiefs' offensive line has been terrible, especially from the tackle positions. But if it is a close game, usually the Chiefs win those games. So I'm going to pick them to come within 2.5, or obviously come within 2, which will the Texans are favored by, just because I feel like I can't pick against the Chiefs at Arrowhead.
Yeah, I did forget that we go off the lines from the pick'em, which makes life even better for this pick. Because I picked the Chiefs to cover the spread if we're talking about spread for sure. And then I do think they'll win the game. Similar reasons to what you said. Looks like Joe Tooney will probably play left tackle, and he actually was pretty good against Miles Garrett last week. And Joe Tooney's always very good. It actually gives me way more faith that he's left tackle against the Texans than if we had any of the others playing left tackle, to be honest. I think the right side would probably be a bit of a problem. But I'm actually quite confident in Joe Tooney because as good as the Texans' defense are, I think they're number 1 in pass rush win rate across the NFL. That's spread across a lot of guys, whereas, the Browns have just got one guy that they put him on your weakest tackle and he'll just win nonstop. So, I think they'll win the game. I think, like you said, if it's close, the Chiefs tend to do that. Mahomes as an underdog is incredible. And then this game, Hollywood Brown's going to play as well. So the Chiefs have finally got wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 3 on the field. And then, DeAndre Hopkins, who they didn't think they'd have. So I'm excited to see how the offense looks. It'll take a bit of time to get into it. I don't think Hollywood will play loads of snaps, but I think there'll be a few key plays where you can notice a difference. So, for me, I'd just like to see the Chiefs run defense carry on playing really well and stop them. Because if Mixon gets going, that's the only way the Texans offense seems to be efficient, because the pass game is just awful, especially on 1st and 2nd down at the moment. But I'm hoping this will be a nice, comfortable win, but I would doubt it. So Chiefs probably win by a field goal.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Okay, the other big one, the later game at 9:30 on Saturday sees the Ravens host the Steelers. The Ravens are favored by 6.5 in this game, a must-win game in the race for the AFC North title. If Pittsburgh win this, then they've pretty much won the division. A stat I found completely funny when I saw it on Twitter this week was that Lamar Jackson has never played against Pittsburgh in Baltimore in front of fans, which I think is, he's been in the league since 2018, which is just absolutely crazy. But he's never played a game against Steelers in front of Ravens fans. The only game he was not hurt or rested was in the COVID year. So again, every other game he's either been rested for Tyler Huntley or he's been hurt. So it's certainly the first time that Lamar has played a game of this magnitude with a home field advantage in Baltimore. That being said, I'm gonna go the Steelers to come within 6 because I think it's an AFC North game. They come down to a field goal a lot of the time, and I feel like that'll probably be the case. I think the Ravens win. I think the Ravens have to win, but I do feel like I don't think the Ravens are going to run away with this one. If that's the case, with Mike Tomlin in charge, the Steelers have always got a chance. So I'm going to pick the Steelers to come within the spread, but I do think the Ravens are going to win.
Yeah, I think I'll stick to what I said on our pod. On the betting pod, that I picked the Ravens. We did have the line 5.5, so it's slightly under. But I'd still pick them at 6.5, and they'll win by 7 to 10 points. If George Pickens and TJ Watt were fully healthy, the line wouldn't be this line. But if it was, I would have picked the Steelers because I actually really like how they've played all year. But I just think the Ravens' offense, Derrick Henry's actually starting to slow down a little bit now. But the passing game has still been really efficient. And yeah, he's only won 2 times, I think, in his career against the Steelers. But I just think they'll won't be able to score enough points on the Steelers side to keep up with them with the injuries. So yeah, give me the Ravens. I think it'll be close till maybe the third, fourth quarter. It's not going to be a blowout, but I think they'll win by 7 to 10 points in the end.
And the Ravens could have won the last game, of course, but the Ravens went for 2 to tie the game. To tie the game to overtime at the end of the game, but that was incomplete. And again, it was a game that was decided by 2 points. So the last one was certainly close in Pittsburgh. Okay, on to the early window on Sunday. Some interesting games this week. The Sunday slate is probably pretty bad. It's the primetime games that are the sort of the big ones this week, especially the early window. But there is one game that's good in the early window, and we'll say that to last. Okay, the first one sees the Falcons host the Giants. The 2-12 Giants go to play the 7-7 Falcons. Michael Penix and the Falcons are favored by 10.5 points in his first start. Do you know what? It's a huge spread, but the Giants are that bad. I'm going with Atlanta. It's for the better team. 10.5 is huge, but maybe they're sort of rejuvenated with a quarterback change, and often for rookies as well. Like the first starts are sort of often the best because defenses have no idea how to play them. So normally you'll see like a first start be quite good, and then so I'm banking on that. So yeah, I thought the Falcons are probably going to win this one quite comfortably, and they needed to stay alive in the playoff race as well.
Yeah, pretty hard spread, to be honest, in this one. So I'm going to go with you. It'll go one way or the other. It'll be hard to play against Penix because they haven't seen him, or he'll be a rookie in the headlights and throw a couple of picks. But Giants aren't very good. It seems like the coaching staff, GM, etc., are under pressure. Even though the owner says that he's going to keep them, that doesn't seem to be the rumors that are coming out now. But I just don't think they're good enough. And the team, I wouldn't say they quit, but the offense just doesn't look like they're cohesive at all. So yeah, I'll go the Falcons, but it is a worrying spread to how big it is for how bad the Falcons have been in the last 6 weeks.
Absolutely. The next one is another game between 2 NFC teams. The 7-7 Cardinals going to Carolina to play the 3-11 Panthers. Arizona are favored by 4.5 points, which I think is interesting going into Carolina. Do you know, I can't trust the Cardinals. They're a different team each week, and I can't. I have no idea what they're going to look like. The last couple of weeks have not been great, so I'm not that confident with them. So I'm going to give me Carolina to come within 4 at home. I do think it'll be close. The Panthers are getting better. The offensive line's been really good this year, which I think has gone under the radar a bit, which is why Bryce is playing a lot better because he's not having to run for his life every 2 seconds. And yeah, they're getting some nice play out of some of their pretty bad set of weapons. So I'm going to go. I don't know who wins this game, because of that, I'm going to pick Carolina as the home underdog.
Yeah, there's a lot of home underdogs this week. The Cardinals are a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde team. We said similar on our pod. It's very hard to get with them. It feels like when you pick them, they lose. When you don't pick them, they win. But yeah, I am going to go the other side to you and pick them. I think Kyler he's having a few bad throws a game. That's kind of upticked, but he's still doing some really good things on offense. Scrambling around. He's just not been quite as good in the last 4 or 5 weeks. But I think the offense is still really good. Hopefully Trey McBride gets his first touchdown. Just keep seeing that stat flying around everywhere. But give me the Cardinals. I don't think it'll be a 20-point win or anything like that, but I think they should be able to beat the Panthers by 7+.
Okay, we'll stay in the NFC. We've got a division game now as the Lions go into Chicago. The 12-2 Lions playing as the 4-10 Bears. The Lions are favored by 6.5 points going into Soldier Field. Do you know what? I think the Lions win, but I'm gonna go Chicago here because it's the division game. It's likely to be closer. The one on Thanksgiving was close, of course. Obviously, it's at Soldier Field. The Lions are banged up as well, despite how bad the Bears have looked under their interim head coach Thomas Brown. And I just feel like it's the division game. I feel like if the players are going to be up for any game, it would be this game. I think the Lions win this game, but I won't be surprised if Chicago make it close like it was on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I actually picked this as my best bet, the other side, on last night's show.
Wow.
I picked the Lions because I do feel like without the injuries, this would be like 8 points. It's just the injuries are keeping you down that touchdown. And I think after last week, they'll be able to prove a point and to come out and win this game and blow them out and stay ahead of that 1 seed. I think they win. The whole Bears organization has been a complete disaster. Caleb looks lost. And again, they played really well second half on Thanksgiving. And I picked them to cover that day just because I was desperate for a win on our picks, and the other person picked the Lions. But they played really well, but since then it's just got worse again. So for me, I have to go Lions against the spread. And I just think they'll be destined to try and score some points in this game. I don't think the Bears can keep up.
Okay, from one division game to another, we'll go from the NFC North to the AFC North, where the Browns head to Cincinnati to play the Bengals. The 3-11 Browns against the 6-8 Bengals. Now, I think if Jameis Winston was playing in this game, I'd go Cleveland, but he's not. It would be Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I don't feel like he can lead an offense to beat and compete with Burrow and Chase without Nick Chubb as well. He's done too. Give me Cincinnati favored by 7.5 points because I felt the Bengals offense is just too good, and I feel like the Browns offense without Jameis will be able to compete with them.
Yeah, I completely agree. Give me the Bengals as well. I just don't think they can score enough points. Nick Chubb's out. I'm not sure how big an issue that is because Ford looks like he's got another gear, but the offensive line is not playing well at all for the Browns. No. So, I know the Bengals defense is terrible, but you've still got to be able to make those throws and make them consistently. And I don't think DTR will be able to. So, give me Burrow and Chase to probably score like 40 points or something and win by 7.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, another division game this time in the AFC South as the 6-8 Colts host the 3-11 Titans. The Colts are favored by 4.5 points. For me, this one was a really, really hard one to pick because I don't trust either team. If I'm being honest, I'm going to go with the Colts because the Colts are the healthiest team. I think that's the reason why I'm going for them. They've not really lost anyone massive in that lineup, which is why they've managed to stay alive in the playoff race. Again, somehow they are still alive. Division game, it could be close, but give me the Colts favored by 4.5 points.
Yeah, last week was a complete disaster for the Colts. One of the most funny games I've ever seen, to be honest, in terms of a team breaking down. Who do I even want to pick this week? I think as Mason Rudolph's starting, I will probably pick the Colts. I would have picked Will Levis, probably, to be honest, if he was playing. But I'm not a Mason Rudolph guy. So, I'm going to go for the Colts. A bit of a win, hopefully, for their head coach, because I really like him. And I'm a bit worried we could get into sacrifice season for him, even though I think it's probably others in the organisation that are at fault.
Yeah.
Give me the Colts.
I don't know.
The owner is the big problem, but you can't make the owner sell the team. But I'll go for the Colts because I kind of want them to win, and I just can't be picking Mason Rudolph, even though the Titans' defense is actually quite good.
Yeah, I can't believe Brian Callahan's robbed us of Anthony Richardson versus Will Levis again. That would have been a great game. so many turnovers, and we've been robbed of that. Okay, I'll go on to the next one. This one could be fun actually. The 8-6 Rams head to New York to play the 4-10 Jets. The Rams are favored by 3.5 points on the road. For me, this is a close sort of one to pick because the Jets' offense recently has been playing quite well. They've scored like 30 points the last couple of weeks. It could be high scoring again, especially if how good the Rams have been. But I'm going to go with the Rams. I just can't pick against them because, one, of how well they're playing at the minute, and also, two, with how important this game is, and also the fact they're off a mini bye as well because they played on Thursday night last week. So give me the Rams, but I'm interested to see how the Jets can turn up to this one because the last couple of weeks, Rodgers and Adams and Wilson have been clicking.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I'm same side as you. Give me the Rams. Pick them most weeks, though. Like I said earlier, they are my NFC team. I really do like the Rams. And again, I think Puka, Cooper Kupp, Steve Avila, they were all banged up going into Thursday night. Puka Nacua is always banged up. And I think the extra bye will definitely help them. And I think the Jets had their Aaron Rodgers documentaries coming out win last week, and I think this game will be too much, and the Rams win because they control their own destiny. So the game is way more important for them.
Yeah, okay, and we say the best game to last. The 12-2 Eagles going to Washington to play the 9-5 Commanders. The Eagles are favored by 3.5 points going into Washington. Fun one this because obviously both teams had good performances last week. The Commanders in the first half anyway, they almost lost the game to the Saints, which blows my mind because they were so good in the first half, and then let him creep back in when Spencer Rattler came into the game. The Washington offense it had a few different things come out of the bye, which was good to see because it was getting really stale first, and that's a criticism that Cliff Kingsbury's had a lot of his time he's been coaching in the NFL. As the season's gone on, it's got a bit stale. They came out and we're up quite early, quite big, which was needed. The defense is getting better as well. It was nice to see Marshall Lattimore play last week against his former team. But I just think the Eagles are going to be too good to not lose this, and I feel like they're going to win this by more than 4 points. So give me the Eagles to cover it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, give me the Eagles as well. Commanders' offense has really taken a tick down since the usual Cliff Kingsbury stuff happens, but also Jaden had that rib injury, not quite been as explosive as he was before that. So, yeah, give me the Eagles as well. I think they'll be able to score enough points, run the ball really well. There'll be some A.J. Brown token bombs down the field to try and keep him happy. But I just think that the Commanders' defense won't be good enough to stop the Eagles scoring. So, yeah, I'll go for the Eagles as well.
Awesome. We're going to the 9 p.m. window then. One 9:05 game. The others are at 9:25. We'll start with the best game. The Vikings go to Seattle. The 12-2 Vikings against the 8-6 Seahawks. Minnesota are favored by 4.5 points going into Seattle. An interesting sort of nugget there. I'm going to go with Seattle because I think it'll be close. The Seahawks defense is keeping games close. A lot now. To be honest with you, it's getting better. It had that sort of dip in the middle of the season when they couldn't really have a linebacker that was any good. They found that now in Ernest Jones, and they're playing a lot better. I also Seattle's a hard place to play as well. It's a really hard stadium to go to and play well. And I just feel like Minnesota's one-score game luck is going to have to come to an end at some point. For the better coach team, I think Darnold's actually playing really well recently. I think he's actually getting better and better, which is nice to see. I thought it'd be the other way around once defenses started to figure him out. But Darnold's, he's not turning the ball over anymore, and he's really, pushing the ball down the field really well. I think it'd be close. It's one of the games I'm looking forward to watching this week. But I'm going to go with Seattle to come within that spread because I just feel like it's going to be closer than it says because it's in Seattle.
Yeah, probably good for you that I'm on the other side because Seattle are another team I keep going almost wrong against. It feels like, to be honest. I do really like them, but over the last 6 weeks, the offense is last in the league in DVOA, and so start of the year the defense was a disaster. Now they're top 10. And the offense is just completely created. I think Geno looks like he's going to play, which is a big thing for Seahawks. But yeah, I'm going to go for the Vikings. I really like how the defense is playing. Offensive line as well, especially they did the trade. Obviously, they lost the left tackle. Traded for Cam Robinson. He's playing really well. I think it will be close-ish because it feels like that's the Vikings method. But I do think they will cover the spread and win the game. I think they're playing really well. And I'm probably sneakily hoping for a Week 18 Vikings-Lions 1 seed battle.
That'd be fun.
to be honest. So I think they'll win, but I agree with you. I think it'll be close. It's a very hard place to play.
Okay, we'll go over to the AFC East now, where all division tie between the Bills and the Patriots. The 3-11 Patriots go to Buffalo to play the 11-3 Bills. The Bills are favored by 14.5 points here. And you know what? Give me Buffalo. Huge spread, but give me Buffalo here. It's what they do. They absolutely beat up on the poor teams. The Patriots defense has been disappointing this year, and their own line sucks as well, despite how good Drake May's been scrambling around and stuff like that. I think he's averaging like 9 yards per carry right now, to be fair to him. So Drake May's playing very well to sort of combat that. But I feel like that's a recipe for disaster against the Bills front. No matter how often they blitz, they're still getting pressure from their front. And it's what the Bills do. I have no worries about the Bills smashing a bad team because that's what they're really, really good at.
Yeah, I'd like to take the Patriots for Drake May and keep them up, but you're right. It's the same logic. They're normally best. Them winning big scoring games against good teams is actually unusual for them. They're normally lower scoring tight games against the good teams, and they absolutely smash the really bad teams. So, yeah, I'm with you. I'll pick them. I wouldn't normally pick a spread that big and be on that side, but I just think Patriots defense has been woeful, and Josh Allen's playing really well. And they can't stop the run, the Patriots, and the Bills love to run it. So, I'll go for the Bills as well.
Okay, we'll go over to Miami, where the Dolphins host the Niners. Both teams are 6-8. The Dolphins are favored by 1.5 points as Kyle Shanahan and Mike McDaniel meet in Miami. With obviously both coaches looking like it's missed the playoffs after having really disappointing seasons. Big injuries from both teams as well. I was shocked to see this was the Nance Romo game this week. I thought, because obviously Josh Allen playing in the late window, I thought it'd be Bills because they love to show Allen and the Bills. And but no, this is the Nance Romo game. It just shows how much of a poor slate it is on a Sunday. Really, to be honest with you, I can't trust either team this year, the Niners or the Dolphins. I'm going to go with the Niners to. I mean, it's 1.5 points, so it's a pick 'em. But I'm going to go with the Niners here. They're off a mini bye. Those extra few days could help. And I mean, before last week, I would have gone for the Dolphins. Even if they lost, I probably would have gone for the Dolphins if it wasn't for how bad the offensive line looked last week. And yeah, Tua has been great this year. I said he's a top 5 quarterback in a lot of numbers this year since coming back from the concussion. But he had his worst game of the year at the wrong time last week as well, which is typical. So give me the Niners in this game. It's a shame because the Dolphins have really started to play well the last couple of weeks, but I still can't trust them. So the Niners off a mini bye, I think, will be the difference here.
Yeah, I'm going to pick the Niners as well, to be honest. If you pick the Dolphins, I was going to pick the Dolphins just to be nice to you about Tua for the first time ever. But, I'd go for the Niners just because A, because of the rest, and B, it looks like Bosa's going to play from what I read yesterday. And
him going against Jackson Carman, that does not fill me with confidence whatsoever. So
and I know it's not about one player in one situation, but I think that is enough to cause enough game-changing plays for them to win by a field goal or something like that. But yeah, these two teams, crazy. I think the line is like 44.5. If you'd have asked before the season, it would have been 51.5, and everyone thought these two teams would have been, chance to make the playoffs. So, crazy. But I'll go for the Niners, same reason as you. A little bit more rest and tackle situation. Yeah,
as I say, it's a shame because I think we had this conversation the other day. Tua's been playing brilliantly. He's the one thing he's not had is like the EPA. Like he's not really elevated his team much. The last couple of weeks he has done that. And then, and again, he has some great throws in the Houston game, but just unfortunately 2 really poor throws, and the Texans had a really good game plan to combat the hitch route that Tyreek Hill loves to run. Okay, we'll go over to a terrible game now between the 3-11 Jags and the 2-12 Raiders. The Raiders are at home in this one. They're favored by 1.5 points. It's a small spread. I don't know what to say about both teams, to be fair, until they're like 3rd or 4th quarterback of the season. I'm picking the Raiders as they're at home. That's my only reason for this one. To be fair, what the Jags did last week, they might be able to do it. But I'm just picking the Raiders because they're at home.
Yeah, I'm picking the Raiders because they're going against Mac Jones. So not same as you, not much else to say. But I'll pick the Raiders, and I think the Raiders have won last 10 in a row. So yeah, it would also be very Raidersy to win a random game and get themselves out the first pick. So give me the Raiders. Yeah,
absolutely. I think if they win this game, say the Giants win this week as well, then you've got so many teams at 3-3 and 12 Sorry,
yeah.
that you've got one hell of a race for the first overall pick. Okay, we'll go over to Sunday Night Football now, where this one should be fun. The Bucks go to play the Cowboys. The 8-6 Bucks travel to Dallas to play the 6-8 Cowboys. The Bucks are favored by 4.5 points. This is a fun one because which sort of shows where this slate is at compared to last week. I'm going to go for the Bucks to cover. Obviously, they're playing for something. The Cowboys, even though they're sort of mathematically alive, they're really not playing for anything, to be honest with you. Baker is balling right now too. Again, the offensive line's got better last couple of weeks, which is nice. But I am scared a little bit of the Dallas defense because they have had a little bit of a turn in form. But yeah, I'm banking on Dallas being bad at home again, as they have been all year. So yeah, give me the Bucks by 4.5.
Yeah, same. Give me the Bucks. I love how the Bucks are playing. Baker's played well all season. Spoke about him on this pod a few times, me and you have. So, yeah, I think they're playing well overall as an offense. Bucky Irvin looks good. Mike Evans is going for that 1,000 yards. He'll probably get 200 yards and 2 touchdowns in this game. Typical Mike Evans game. So, yeah, I think they win. I think they cover. And to be honest, I was surprised the spread wasn't bigger. But, yeah, the Cowboys' woes at home are probably going to continue, I think, for me after this week.
Also, the next spread is massive as the 10-4 Packers host of 5-9 Saints. The Packers are favored by 13.5 points. Obviously, two of your guys face off, Jordan Love and Spencer Rattler, two guys you're quite high on. I'm going to go Green Bay to cover that spread because it's purely because it's at Lambeau Field. They're starting to get hot, and I mean, look, the Saints have been frisky recently. They've certainly kept a lot of games close, and I feel like Darren Rizzi will get a head coach interview. As I mentioned on the podcast before, he's got head coaching interviews before as well as a special teams guy. So I think I don't think he'll get the head coaching job, but he's done a sort of decent enough job to get an interview there. Yeah, Spencer Rattler worries me against this Packers defense, which has been great at turning the ball over.
I know, it's like picking between my two children at this stage with these two quarterbacks. I'll probably go Green Bay as well. I think the Saints defense is a bit banged up. Josh Jacobs playing really well. I think they'll be able to run the ball and control the clock against the Saints. So yeah, I'll go for Green Bay. I would like a little bit of a smaller spread just in case, because Green Bay can sometimes play with their food a little bit. They either win by 30 or they'll win by like 3. So yeah, but I'll pick them. They're still in it. They're kind of locked into their seed, it looks like, in the NFC. But you want to win games and play well ahead of the playoffs. So yeah, I'll go for them.
Awesome. Well, that's it. That is it. No 2 Monday Night Football games this week, which is crazy, especially with how bad both games were on Monday this week. I think I don't feel like the double Monday Night Football really works. So it is nice to not have that this week.
Agreed.
Especially if both games are terrible as well. There's no way I'm staying up to watch one, let alone 2. Okay, well, thank you for joining me, Liam. It's been great to have you on the podcast again this week. It's been a bit of a while, so it's been good to catch up with you and some talk some ball. And a big thank you for everyone who's been listening to this podcast. I hope you have a Merry Christmas. It will be the next time we come back will be after Christmas. We'll be reacting to those 2 games on Christmas Day, which are going to be really fun because they've got 2 teams, or 2 games between teams that have winning records. So the NFL have done great. But there, a big thank you to Liam for coming on the podcast. As always, I've been Sam. This is the Full10 Yards NFL Podcast, and I will see you next time.